joining us is Alexander Rodnyansky, a former academic at Cambridge University who returned home to advise Zelensky on economic policy, and when Russia invaded last year was immediately invited to join the Ukrainian president in an underground bunker beneath the bank over. So, Alexander, I'd like you to talk us through you being there as war started and then going into the bunker and what happened and what was happening down there.
Sure. I mean, obviously, it wasn't very pleasant on that day. We all woke up at pretty early in the morning, around 4 a.m., 5 a.m. I remember the first blast that struck, and that basically woke me up. I was awake slightly before, but then I heard them, as soon as they came. We were invited into the bunker. We have been on many occasions to the bunker ever since, on and off. Kiev was very empty in the early days of the invasion and became really empty for the first month or two. Then, after the Russian offensive had failed to capture Kiev for the Battle of Kiev, they had lost the Battle of Kiev. Kiev became more lively again, but it's still far from normal compared to what it used to be. So look, we've been living this reality ever since, as you know, and now the war has shifted to other regions. It's mainly concentrated in Donbass in the south of Ukraine. And we're trying to regain control over all of our territory. And we have no doubt that it will be successful. But unfortunately, we're paying this extraordinary price, a price that we should never have been, should have been paying for our freedom. But unfortunately, we have to. So that's what it is.
Alexander, I just wondered, how surprised were you and was President Zelensky when Russia did actually invade? Did you actually really believe it was going to happen, or did you actually think, they're not going to do this, it's all bluff?
Yeah, good, interesting question. I mean, we were sort of privately divided on what we expected, even though we knew the threat was very real and we were receiving all sorts of intelligence and information, our own intelligence, foreign intelligence, that seemed to confirm that, this was, very likely. I can speak for myself. I was convinced that it was going to happen. I mean, I'm not trying to, say I knew everything, but I thought I had a pretty good understanding of what was going on in the mind of the Russian leader. And unfortunately, it seems like I did. I mean, he failed to subdue Ukraine over the years with any other means that he potentially had at his disposal at the time. Russia didn't become a magnet for the region, so Ukraine didn't voluntarily team up with it, if you want. Russia, didn't convince anybody in Ukraine in any other way. So the only tool at their disposal that was remaining was essentially military force, and that's exactly what they used in order to basically have Ukraine under their own sphere of influence, as they say. So you kind of saw it coming. You saw it coming also from the way that the Russian leader spoke and the way he acted over the years, and increasingly towards the end. And you obviously saw it coming from all the preparations and the intelligence that you saw if you looked at the military preparations and what they were actually building, just across our border. So look, I mean, we knew that was very serious. Some of us were, convinced that it was going to happen. Some of us wanted to believe until the very end that it's not going to happen.
Alexander, you've obviously seen President Zelensky at close quarters, and you were there right at the start. How have you seen him change over the last year?
Well, the situation is obviously tough for everybody. He's been, very strong throughout. He's endured a lot, and he's shown great leadership, and he's really lived up to the task. So I wouldn't say that he has changed as a person, but he's obviously adapted to the circumstances. So, we've been in this for a year, and I think everybody's been coping pretty well.